I wanted to share my story on your channel because I know most of the times Thai bar girls are just playing games, and 9 times out of 10 they aren't serious. But once in a blue moon you can meet one that is truly different and has her head screwed on. After I was let go from my job with a decent severance pay, I wanted to treat myself to a long break, and Thailand was calling my name. I had actually visited a couple of months before, and let's just say I had a lot of fun and I knew I had to go back. At first, my plan was pretty simple, basically a repeat of last time. I was thinking I'd spend some time in Bangkok, let loose a bit in the bars and meet some ladies there, then get out of holiday mode and hit up a Thai gym just outside the city and really dive into the training. I'd also do a bit of travelling around, maybe head up north to check out areas I hadn't had chance to explore last time. Although I do like the nightlife in Thailand, I like hanging out with bar girls and having fun, I'd also like to see more of the country than just that. It sounded like the perfect mix of adventure and self-improvement, and I was ready for it. I had originally planned on staying in Thailand for about 5 months and get as much done as possible. I was going to do 2-month visa exemption, extend it for a month, and then do a border run to extend it even more. And at the end of that, I'd see where I was and then plan from there. But life had other plans. Right before I left, I had a job interview, and I ended up landing the position. The job was decent, with a great salary and a lot of benefits, so I couldn't turn it down just for the sake of a longer trip to Thailand. So, my grand Thailand adventure got short to just under 3 months, which was still great, but it wasn't exactly what I had hoped for. Anyway, on to the juicy details of my story. I was in a bar in Bangkok on a Friday night, enjoying myself as I usually do and having fun buying lady drinks. The bar I was in had some sort of bar girl agency thing going on, so there were about 10 new girls there for the first night. I had never seen that happen before, but it sure was fun. About halfway through the night, a girl walked in. She caught my attention right away. I'd say she was around 23, maybe a little younger. She was super petite, like even smaller than most Thai girls, which made her stand out even more. She had this classic Thai look to her, long, thick dark hair down her back, and her skin was a little darker than most Thais. And when she smiled, it was impossible not to notice. It was huge and beautiful. The way she dressed was on point too, and she had a great body to go along with everything else. Even though my Thai wasn't anything to brag about, okay, it was non-existent, I still enjoyed listening to her speak. And after a while, I couldn't resist asking the girl I was currently with who the new girl was. She told me she was new to the bar, had only been there a couple of days, and was there because she had actually recently left her normal job. It made her seem even more interesting, and I really wanted to know more. Talking to bar girls that have worked there a long time, it's normally always the same conversation, but speaking to people that are new to the game, I feel like you get to know them a bit more because they are not used to asking the same boilerplate bar girl questions. Eventually, I gathered up the courage to go and talk to her. I'm not sure why, but I actually felt nervous for once in approaching a bar girl, but I figured I had to at least give it a shot. I waited until she was done with the customer that was chatting to her without buying her a drink, and then I made my move. I asked the girl I was sitting with if she minded that I go over and talk to her. Of course, she didn't mind. she'd already gotten a few lady drinks out of me, so she was happy enough. I walked over to this new girl, and again, for some strange reason, I got nervous and shy. I could barely keep it together before I said hello. She turned around and gave me this look of confusion, like she wasn't sure who I was or what was going on. Then she mumbled something, but I couldn't really catch what she said. I tried to keep things light and asked her how she was doing, but it was obvious she was new to all of this, and I could quite easily see she was nervous as well. She seemed shy, and I noticed she was avoiding looking at me directly. Instead, she was fixed on something over my shoulder, like she wasn't sure how to react. I decided to keep things simple and asked her her name, introducing myself at the same time, and asked if I could buy her a drink. This time, she mumbled something again, but I caught enough to figure out what her name was. I guess that was a start. We sat down and got drinks. At first, the conversation was a little awkward, lots of small talk that didn't really go anywhere. Her English was shaky, and she mumbled quite a bit, so it was pretty hard to keep the flow going. But after a little while, her English seemed to improve just enough to make the conversation feel a little more natural, even though she still had a tendency to mumble. She opened up a bit and told me that she had only just started doing this job and had done office work previously, which is the reason she was shy and did not speak great English. She didn't plan on working at the bar too long. She just wanted to make some extra money while she was applying for other jobs. We spent a couple of hours drinking and talking to each other, although I did not learn anything about her, but she seemed to enjoy my company as I did hers. I had to move on to a different bar, as I promised my friend I'd see him there. I asked for her number, saying something like, "Would it be okay if I called or texted you sometime?" She gave me a smile and nodded her head. I gave her my line and told her if she was interested in meeting up again to just message me. In all fairness, I did not really expect her to contact me. She probably just saw me as another Farang that was after one thing. But she had my number, so it was up to her now. I walked away with my phone in my hand, grinning like a Cheshire cat, feeling on top of the world. I carried on with my night as if I never met her. I didn't say anything to my friend about her, and just had a fun night out in Bangkok. The next morning, I was lying in bed alone, feeling a little worse for wear, and my phone went off. It was her. I was surprised by how good her written English was, way better than I expected, especially after our hard-to-understand conversation the night before. She apologized for her English being bad, but honestly, it was way better than mine. We started exchanging a few text messages back and forth, and after some casual texting, I decided to go for it and ask if she wanted to go out for dinner sometime. I hit send and then just waited. It felt like forever before I got a reply, and when I finally did, it was a simple yes. We arranged to meet at the Terminal 21 Mall on Sukhumvit Road, as she knew a restaurant in the area and it seemed like an easy spot to find each other. I got there around 7:30, right on time, but when I looked around, I didn't see her anywhere. I waited for about 15 minutes, but still no sign of her. It was starting to feel a bit awkward, me just standing there while people were walking by me. As I waited, the doubt started creeping in. Was she standing me up? I checked the time again. Another 10 minutes had passed. I couldn't just stand there, so I gave her a call. She picked up right away, and it turns out there was more than one entrance to the mall. She was at one of them, and I was at the other. When I finally saw her face to face, I couldn't believe how cute she looked. Actually cuter than when I'd seen her in the bar. She was obviously not dressed as if she was going to the bar, but she still looked amazing. We headed off to the restaurant, and I could tell right away that her English was a little rough. She was clearly still very shy, nervous, and was probably cautious of me, which I guess is understandable. She mumbled a lot again, and I had to really focus to catch what she was saying. The conversation felt a little clunky at first, but as the night wore on, something started to shift. Her English improved as she got more comfortable and she began to relax. Her body language changed too. She went from being nervous and stiff to more laid back and at ease. It was like the conversation was finally flowing, and I could see her starting to enjoy herself, which made me feel a lot better too. What really amazed me was how different she was from other girls I'd been out with in the past. I have dated both bar girls and girls that work a normal job in the past, but they didn't even come close to this girl. She didn't ask the same old boring questions over and over again, like, "What did you eat today?" or "What is your favourite colour?" I'd been out with a few Thai girls before, and although they are fun to hang out with, the conversation always felt like they were on repeat. If I mentioned something slightly out of the ordinary, their response would often be, "I don't know," and it got old pretty quickly. But with her, it was different. She actually engaged in the conversation and didn't stick to the usual cliches. The other thing that stood out was how polite she was. She was constantly saying thank you, which was a lot more than I could say for some of the other girls I'd gone out with before. It was so refreshing to see someone so genuine. Over the next few weeks, we started hanging out more and more, and it quickly turned into something deeper. We went on several dates, and I began to feel like we were becoming really close. She showed me around Bangkok, taking me to places I hadn't been, and introducing me to some of her friends. What had started as a holiday romance was beginning to feel like something much more meaningful, even though it was with a bar girl. I know she was a bar girl, but she was very new to the game, and from what I saw, it was a temporary job for her, unlike some of the girls that wanted to do this for as long as possible. There was this connection between us that I hadn't expected, and it was starting to feel like we were building something real. Spending time with her was honestly one of the highlights of my time in Thailand. When we weren't together, she was pretty much always on my mind. I'd catch myself thinking about her at random times, and sometimes I couldn't even believe I had found myself in this situation. After everything I had read online about Thai girls and the stereotype of having a Thai girlfriend, I started to wonder how I'd be judged back home by my friends. But despite all of that, I couldn't deny how happy I was when I was with her. Even if I'd go out with friends to other bars, I just wasn't interested anymore in talking to other girls. I'd still have fun, but I would make it very clear that I was only there to drink. And most of the time, I would end up in her bar by the end of the night so I could see her again anyway. We spent most nights together after she finished work, and then most of the morning and afternoon together the next day. It became a nice routine with her. Having a romance like this in Thailand is something I did not really have on my cards. One of my favourite places was one of the many Bangkok parks. It was a peaceful spot where we could sit and talk, getting to know each other better with every conversation. I never once got bored talking to her. She had this way of making everything interesting, and she had this incredibly positive outlook on life that I admired so much. It was like she was always able to find the good in every situation, and it was really refreshing. She told me her dream was to move out of Thailand for work, not by the way most Thai girls do it, with a sponsor. She had even been applying to jobs in other countries and wanted to put her qualifications to use. We also had this similar sense of humour, which was a huge plus. Sure, sometimes I found her a bit childish in some ways, but that only added to the fun of everything. What really stood out to me though was that she was much more than just cute and fun. She was really smart and could have a serious conversation when the moment called for it. It was that balance between light heart and maturity that made her special. I grew really close to her over time, but there was always this part of me that was a bit worried and nervous. I would start thinking to myself, what exactly was she after? I mean, after everything I'd read online about Thai girls and relationships like this, they barely work, and 9 times out of 10, they end up with the guy being rinsed. Plus, I knew that a future together would always be complicated. Our cultural differences, the distance, and everything else. So I started thinking, why would I want to keep this relationship going? I don't want to eventually turn into an ATM being used long distance. Just to be clear, she never gave me the impression she was after money, using me for anything, and nothing about her seemed toxic. It was just thoughts in the back of my mind, I guess. There were a few moments when I seriously considered walking away, telling myself it might just be easier to stop seeing her. But in the end, I couldn't bring myself to do it. If something feels right, why change it? I had a feeling deep down that it was worth sticking with her. Then, one morning, she called me with some news. She'd been telling me for a while she had been applying for jobs abroad, and she had finally gotten an offer in Dubai doing some sort of accounting work. I was actually very happy for her, because I knew this is what she wanted, and she had already told me she wanted out of Thailand and onto better things. It was a big step for her, and I was genuinely excited to see her go after the dream of hers. At the same time though, I couldn't deny a little bit of sadness. I knew things would get more complicated between us now. She told me that there was still the paperwork process to go through, but if everything went smoothly, she'd be leaving Thailand in about 4 weeks. I was planning on leaving Thailand in 5 weeks myself. I just wished she had gotten a job in my country rather than Dubai. We made the most of the time we had left though. For the last 3 weeks, we spent a lot of time together, trying to soak up every moment. She even stopped working at the bar a week earlier than she had originally planned, so we could go on a little getaway before she left. It felt like we were trying to squeeze in as much time as possible. Then, 2 days before she was set to fly to Dubai, her family came to visit Bangkok to see her off. Her grandma, uncle, aunt, and both of her parents. She invited me to meet them and join them for dinner. I was both excited and nervous. I mean, this was a big step meeting her family, and especially knowing that she hadn't really told them about me yet. I did ask her if she had mentioned me to them, and she told me, not exactly, but it will be fine. I wasn't so sure about that, but I agreed to go anyway, trying to stay calm and go with the flow. We were meeting at an apartment belonging to her parents' friends. and as I arrived in the taxi, I could immediately see the look of confusion on her father's face. When he saw his daughter with a pale-skinned, blonde-haired guy, you could practically see the wheels turning in his head. He gave me this look, almost like he was trying to figure me out. It was intense, like he was looking right through me, wondering who this guy was and what his intentions were. I did my best to be respectful and greeted him with a bow and a sawadee khap, to which he gave me a small nod. It wasn't exactly a warm greeting, but it was something. I figured I'd try to do something helpful. There was a 7-Eleven close by, so I went inside and grabbed 4 big bottles of Singer beer. I figured it would be the perfect icebreaker, and hopefully it would leave a good impression on her family. As we entered the small apartment, I made sure to give a bow to everyone and greeted them with another sawadee khap. The first person I noticed was her mother. I could tell it right away, mainly because of the big, warm smile she gave me, showing off a perfect set of teeth. Her grandma, on the other hand, was a little different. Her remaining teeth had clearly seen better days, but she had this sweet, welcoming energy about her that made me feel at ease. It was clear that the whole family was a bit amused by my unexpected appearance. They probably didn't know what to make of me, this random foreigner showing up out of the blue. The only one whose face didn't budge was her dad. It was like he had this rock-solid, unreadable expression ever since he first saw me in the taxi. I had no idea what was going on in his head, but I could tell he wasn't exactly thrilled. The interesting thing was that none of them spoke English except for her uncle. He spoke it pretty poorly, but that didn't stop him giving it his best shot. Thankfully, most of what he said was easy to translate, and from there I was bombarded with questions. They wanted to know where I was from, what I was doing in Thailand, and a million other things. I tried to answer as best as I could, but it felt like the heat was on, and I wasn't sure if I was passing the test. I handed the bag of Singer to her dad, and he gave me another nod, and then said something in rapid fire in Thai. Before I could even process it, a glass was in my hand, and he was filling it up with Singer, giving me a slight smile. It seemed like my plan had actually worked. I felt a little relief as he handed me the beer, like it was a sign that I was starting to win them over. As the day went on, more questions kept coming, and the food just kept appearing. It was like there was an endless supply, and her mom was always checking to see if it was too spicy for me. Padme? I had learned this phrase by now, meaning, is it too spicy? I smiled and said it was fine, even if my mouth was occasionally on fire. Her mom kept going on and on about how she was worried because she had never seen a Farang who looked younger than he actually was. She said that Farangs usually looked older than their age, which honestly left me a bit confused. I wasn't entirely sure why she was so worried about it, but I just smiled and nodded. My glass was constantly being refilled with Singer, and I could feel myself starting to relax a bit more as the evening went on. I learnt more about her family. Her dad was ex-army, which made a lot of sense. It explained his serious demeanour and the way he eyed me up earlier. It was just his nature, I suppose. Even though I couldn't speak Thai as well as I wanted to, I did my best to stay polite and smile through the conversation. I really wish I could have understood more though, especially when it came to talking directly to her parents. I felt like I was missing out on a lot of what they were saying, but I tried to make the most of it. As the day was coming to an end, and I was preparing to leave, they invited me to dinner the next day. I was happy to accept the dinner invitation. It felt nice to be included in another family gathering. I knew she would be leaving for Dubai that night, and I wanted to do something special before she left. The next morning, I woke up early, went to the mall, and spent some time picking out a gift. I arrived at the apartment just before noon. Her dad was sitting on the couch watching TV, so I joined him in awkward silence. We had our last dinner together with the family, and I gave her a gold necklace that I had purchased at the mall earlier. Although everyone was having fun, you could feel the sadness in the air. Everyone was upset that she was leaving, but putting on a brave face to not bring the mood down. And then it was finally time to go to the airport and say our final goodbyes. All of us, including the family, got a taxi together, with her mum crying and her father just staring out of the window. At the airport, she told me that I couldn't hug her, just smile and wave, that would be best. It seemed so final. I was finally feeling that this just may be the end of me and her. She promised she would call me as soon as she could once she got to Dubai, and that we could stay in touch through Line. Then, as if to make it feel a little more official, she made me promise that I would come and visit her as soon as I could, to which I agreed, of course. After saying goodbye, I walked away from the airport with a lump in my throat. I also said my goodbyes to her family, as they were getting a different taxi to a different place from me. I got the taxi back to the condo I had been renting, and I was finally alone, able to process everything. I felt overwhelmed with sadness at this point. I'd waved goodbye to girls before, but those were different situations. Relationships ending after university or because of circumstances, not because someone I really cared about was flying to a different country. I was making it a bigger deal than it should have been, because even if she stayed in Thailand, I would have still had to fly to see her, so it shouldn't really matter if she was in Dubai or not. So I'm not really sure why I felt sad and lonely, but I did. It was a helpless feeling. I cared for her so much. To me, this wasn't just some kind of relationship you hear about in all of these stories. It was more than that, and the thought of not being able to see her or hold her for months, I don't know, it just hit me. This was the first time in my life I'd ever cried over a girl, and it hit me hard. I called up a friend, hoping to distract myself with a few beers on Sukhumvit. So, I ended up sitting there with him, watching the crowd walk by, feeling completely defeated, while trying my best to get slightly tipsy. I sat there wondering when I'd ever see her again, if at all. I'm going to cut the rest of the story short. I never did make it to Dubai to visit her. Over time, our messages slowed down, and eventually they stopped. My guess is that she met someone else and moved on with her life. It wasn't a terrible ending, but it still hurt a little. That is my story, the one that got away. I truly wish her the best, and I hope she's happy with whatever path she has taken in life.